So this is 6.1c is in CAT, and this is elementary algebra, and this is called factoring by grouping. Now this is a really important concept to get. We don't use it a whole ton of a lot, but when we need to, sometimes it's the only way to solve these. So you're gonna have to get to the point where something clicks in you like, oh my gosh, I could do factor by grouping, and then you'll be able to solve it. All right, so what we've got here is, well, let's just look at one of the, just by factoring out the GCF, we had XC plus YC. Okay, and what we did is we looked and saw what is common there. I have a C there and a C there, so I can pull it out and write what's left. That's pretty much what we just did. There's my two factors, C times X plus 1. Sometimes, though, we might have something like, now let's do it in yellow so you see that I'm doing a different problem, plus 3x plus 2y plus 6. You know, I've had people ask me before, how are you doing these videos? What I've got is an iPad, and I've got this handy-dandy cool little pen with a metal stylus that's made for writing on iPads, and I just write and talk, and it records everything. So anyway, maybe you don't care, but so I've got some things in here that don't jive very well. If I look here, I've got an XY. Here I have an X but no Y. Here I have a Y but no X. And here I don't have an X or a Y. So what I do is I notice that I have an X and an X here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these together. I also notice over here that I have a 2 and a 6. Well, I have some commonality there because I have a 2 times 1 there, and I have a 3 times 2 there, so I have a 2 that's common to both of those. So I'm going to group those together. Okay? And because there's a plus sign, I can do that. And we'll get to some other ones later on that have minus signs that are a little different. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look what's common in that first group there. I have an X. I have an X there and an X there. So I'm pulling it out and writing what's left. Just like I did up here. There's a C and a C, so I just pulled it out and I wrote what's left. All right, over here. What did I say I had that's common? A 2. What do I have left? A Y and a 3. So notice, if I distribute this X times Y, I get my XY again. X times 3, I get my 3X. If I multiply 2 times Y, I get my 2Y back. 2 times 3, and I get my 6 back. So that is well and good. And notice what happened here. And this is very important. What's left in my parentheses are the same. When you have what's left in your parentheses the same, it doesn't matter if these are different. So what we do is we take the stuff that's outside the parentheses, put it together. Stuff that's inside the parentheses, we just write one time, and we are done. Okay? So if you were to take this and use the FOIL method, you would get that back. Okay, so again, what we did is we took this long answer and factored it, found the two expressions that multiplied together that would give this back to me. Okay, so that's what I did here. So let's look at example 9. So let's see if there's anything we can group. Let's see, over here I have an X and an X, and over here I have a Y and a Y. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple different tricks with this. Alright, so what's common here? I've got an X that's common, and I'm left with an A plus B inside. Over here I have a Y that's common, and I have an A plus B inside. Remember, then I said everything outside you put together and put in parentheses, and everything inside you just rewrite that once. Okay, so you get that for an answer. Now, one of the things I want you to look at, though, is I'm going to write this thing again. Is that I have a B here and a B here. So I could rewrite this as AX plus AY, because I've got an AY, and so I'm writing them with my A's close together and then my B's close together. And if I look at this, I can take an A out and I'm left with, an X plus Y. And here I can take a B out and I'm left with an X plus Y. And what did I say? Letters outside together, letters inside written once. And notice what we've got. This is the same as this. Okay, the factors are just in a different order, but they're still multiplied. Just like you can take 3 times 2, and that equals 2 times 3. This times this equals this times this. Okay, so it doesn't matter if you pick to pull out the A's here like I did or the X's here. As long as you look and say, oh, these can be grouped and these can be grouped because there's some common things in there. All right, so let's go to example 10 because example 10 has a doggone minus sign. Okay, so this is example 10. Oh my goodness, I have seen so many different professors teach this so many different ways. So let's just give it a shot. I'm going to put parentheses around this and parentheses around this. Okay, so if you remember earlier I said when we pull a negative out, we change the sign, or when we put a negative back in, we change the sign. Okay, we kind of pulled that negative out. It's not in a parenthesis, is it? We pulled it out away from our numbers. So when we did that, we have to change the sign. Okay, so before I put this parenthesis on there, this 2 was a negative. Now that we pulled the negative out, now it's a positive, so that's good. And this negative 5ay changes to a positive now. So what happened is the negative 2 changed to a positive 2 once we put our parenthesis there, and our 5 changed to a positive. Okay, so that's all we had to do. So when there's a minus sign here, in front of where we're going to put the parentheses, we need to make sure that all the signs inside changed. So the 2 changed to a positive, because without the parenthesis it was a negative, and the 5 changed to a positive because that was a negative there. Okay, so now let's start pulling stuff out. And we can ignore, we did all this switching around here, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. That's why I like to do it first. So what do I have common? I've got an x common to both of those, and I'm left with a 2x plus 5a. Okay? Let you look at that for a minute. And what do I have common here? I have a y, and I'm left with 2x plus 5a. Now, again, very, very important to notice. These are the same. Which means when that's the case, we can put what's outside together and what's inside together. And oh, happy day, we're done. Now I'm going to show you another trick that I like to teach students because it keeps this whole stinking negative part, if that's really confusing, from being part of what you're doing here. Okay, so I'm going to write the problem again, and then I'll unpause it. So, if you remember when we did this, when we put this parenthesis here, between the negative here, we had to change the sign of the 2 to a positive and change the sign of the negative 5 to a positive. Okay, and that just, students, that makes a mess out of. So, let's go ahead and rewrite the problem again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange the numbers. It doesn't matter what arrangement I have these numbers in, but if I can get rid of this negative sign here and make it a positive, that would be really, really good. And I notice I have a positive here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if any other terms have a 2 or an x or both in them. Well, that has an x, and that's good. That has an x, and that doesn't have either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to move it over here. So I'm just going to change my order of how this is written. Because what I'm doing is I'm just grouping similar terms together, ones that I can actually pull things out of. So, in the original way I had up here, I could pull, I pulled an x out because I have an x common here and an x here. In this one I have an x common and an x common, but I also have 2's that are common. So, and it doesn't really matter what if you do it this way or not, but it just gets rid of that stupid negative sign that we all hate. So that gives me that, because I pulled out the 2, and I pulled out one of the x's, and that left me with this one. Pulled out the 2, pulled out the x, left me just the y, and that's why it goes there. Alright, so I've got a plus sign, which is what I want. I don't want a negative there. And what can I pull out? Well, I've got a 5 and a 5, so I'm going to pull a 5 out. Got an A and an A, and I'm going to pull an A out, and I'm left with x minus y. So again, I've got an x minus y and x minus y, and because I have those two, I can group the numbers outside the parenthesis, numbers and letters, and write x minus y one time. And again, if you multiplied these two together, you would get your original problem back. Okay, so that's just two ways of doing that. I personally like the second way that I did that because you're not dealing with the negatives. And not that negatives are terrible, it's just easy to make mistakes when you're switching signs and doing all that other stuff. Sometimes it just really gives you a lot more opportunity to make some mess ups. Alright, last example. 3ax minus 10 plus 15x minus 2a. So, if I put parentheses here, I don't have anything in common. 3 doesn't go into 10. I don't have any other letters over here or anything. Nothing in common with those. So, not much help there. But if I rearrange some things, let's say I rearrange this to 3ax plus 15x, so I move this over here. Now, I've got a 3 and an x common there, and here I have a 2 common, a 2 with the 2 and a 2 with the 10. Problem is I got that stinking negative sign there, but we're just going to have to deal with it because it's always good to practice. So let's put a parenthesis here, or a grouping symbol, and look, right now this is minus 10, right? As soon as I put a grouping symbol, that 10 inside becomes positive, and then I change the sign of this. And now I'm done with negatives and positives and changing. I don't have to worry about it. I can just do things as I need to. So what's common there? I've got a 3 and an x. What do I have left in here? I've got an a because I got rid of my 3 and an x. I pulled it out. Pulled out a 3 from the 15 and I have 5 left. And I pulled out an x, so I'm done. What about here? What's common? A 2. And I have a 5 there plus that 2 went away. A there. Now notice I have an a plus 5 and a 5 plus a, which you're all smart enough to realize that a plus 5 and 5 plus a are the same thing, so I'm just going to rewrite it as a plus 5. Take the numbers outside and group. Take the group inside because they're the same and write them like that. And I am good to go and done. Alright, so this is basically going to be just practice. As you look at the problem set, 9 through 42, you're just factoring out the greatest common factor and then writing everything that's left there. Okay, when you get to ones like 43 to 60, they're exactly like I just did. Some of them are going to have that negative where you're going to have to change the sign. Some of them aren't. But I don't see anything in there that really are going to give you any trouble. If you do look at numbers like 61 and 62, they are giving you a whole bunch of letters on there. In fact, for 61, ax plus ay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is like, well, gosh, I could take these two and write it, factor out an a. Take those two, factor out a b. And these two and factor out a c. And notice each one of these are the same, so I can rewrite them as one time. And then everything outside I put together and put in parentheses, and I'm done. Okay? So it's really not any harder, it's just some newer stuff there. So anyway, just practice and ask me questions if you have any for 6.1. And that's it.